Unaware of the chilling turn his family holiday would take, the father booked a bed and breakfast nestled in a vast woodland area, ideal for a tranquil retreat. However, tranquility quickly gave way to terror when he snapped a photo of his wife and son. Dennis really wanted to capture lots of videos on this trip because it was his son's first vacation, and he wanted to remember it forever. He got a new video camera just for this. While he set it up, he asked his wife to keep playing with their son. She made their son crawl towards her with a funny voice, and Dennis felt happy catching the moment. But when Dennis checked the videos later, he got scared. His face turned pale, and he started shaking. Shannon, his wife, noticed and got worried. "What's wrong? You look scared," she said. Dennis didn't answer right away, but then he showed her the video. Something strange was there that scared him. He wanted Shannon to see it too, so he asked her to come quickly and check. He wanted to be sure he wasn't just imagining things. When she looked at the screen, she saw it as well. Both Shannon and Dennis looked up from behind the camera at the same time. It was clearly not just an anomaly that was only visible on their recorder screen, because in real life, they saw it as well. A red blinking light was visible in the woodland area behind their son. What was it? They were hesitant at first, but both of them decided that they wanted to know what the blinking light was, so nervously, they approached the line of trees on the edge of the field. After the negative result of Dennis's search, they decided that they did not want to be out in the open much longer. They packed up their picnic gear and headed back inside the house. The walls felt safe, and within the comfort of the home, they hoped to brush off the nervous feeling that consumed them. But unfortunately for them, that feeling did not last long, because that very same night, they got a second fright, and this time it was a big one. It was Dennis who woke up first. A weird static noise was echoing through the bed and breakfast. It was distant but off-putting enough to wake him. "Shannon! Shannon, wake up!" he shouted while violently waking his wife from her slumber. Shannon opened her eyes just enough so she could see her husband's worried face. "What is it, Dennis?" she asked him, still half asleep. Dennis nudged her a little more and said that he heard a weird noise in the house. It seemed to come from the kitchen downstairs. "Don't you hear it? It's probably just a raccoon," she said, already lying down again. But Dennis wasn't convinced. He grabbed the baseball bat from his sports bag and headed down the stairs. They descended the stairs cautiously, drawn by the mysterious noise until they reached the kitchen. There, sitting on a large table, was an unsettling surprise, an old-fashioned TV straight out of the 90s. Yet, it wasn't the antiquated device that chilled them to the bone. It was what played on its screen, footage from that very afternoon, capturing their family frolicking in the field. Shannon and Dennis exchanged alarmed glances, recognizing the terror reflected in each other's eyes. With a solemn nod, Dennis acknowledged the grim reality. They hurriedly packed their belongings, with Shannon swiftly securing their still-sleeping son in his car seat. Anxious to leave, Shannon waited impatiently by the door while Dennis conducted a final inspection of the TV. Once assured, they departed swiftly, leaving behind the eerie scene in the kitchen. The TV was still playing the footage, but how was such an old device doing that? The answer to that question came when they looked at the back of the device. They saw two long cables running from the back of the TV all the way to the open window in the kitchen. "Look, Shannon, the cables are leading outside," he exclaimed in an almost excited voice. Dennis reached his hand out of the window, pulling the cords upward slowly. "They are attached to something." After a few seconds of pulling, they were met with a familiar sight. The cables were attached to a camera that was feeding the footage directly to the television. It seemed to be the same recorder as the one from the afternoon, but this time they decided to look at it more closely. They closed the side screen of the camera and looked at it from every angle. And then they found their first clue. On the side of the screen, there was a label that read the following: "Property of Westgate Living." What could that be? They drove straight to the local police station in the hope that they would get some answers there. They explained the strange occurrences at the B&B to the officer, and the man in uniform, strangely enough, seemed to know exactly which B&B they were talking about. But that's when this family found a way to surprise this officer because, contrary to the other families who just came by with scary stories, this family brought hard proof of the bizarre events. Dennis reached into his bag and pulled out the unknown camera that started it all. The eyes of the officer turned large as he gazed at the small black device. After that, it was time to research the name on the label. He opened an internet browser on his computer and typed in Westgate Living. It turned out that Westgate Living was a retirement home for old people, And that was not all. The building stood in a woodland area just a mile away from the fam's B&B. "We have to head over there," Shannon said, and both Dennis and the officer could not agree more. They drove over to the building. The trio, together with their little baby boy, entered the retirement home and made their way to the front desk. Dennis got the recorder out and placed it on the desk of the receptionist. That's when the woman behind the desk said something that Dennis did not expect. "Hey, it's finally back," the woman shouted to her colleague. Dennis was taken aback by this remark and asked the receptionist for an explanation. "A resident reported it missing after renting it out about a month ago," she explained. That fact sparked curiosity with the trio in front of the desk. They asked for the room number of the resident and headed toward it. When they entered the room, they came face to face with an elderly man. The old man did not seem fazed at all by the couple and the officer in his room. It was like he was expecting their arrival. "All right, you caught me," he said before they could muster a single word. Shannon showed the camera, and the man immediately started explaining. He said that he was the original owner of the B&B they were staying in. He never wanted to leave his home, but his son didn't care about him. So when he reached the age of 70, his son put him in a retirement home. His son just wanted to profit off the woodland home, so pushing his father aside was an easy choice for him. But the old man didn't want to age in this place. He wanted his home back. So that's why he spent his days commuting back and forth between the retirement home and the B&B to scare the renters of the vacation home, hoping that eventually it would become unrented. Maybe that way, his son would give up and he could finally have his home back. "Well, that did the trick," Shannon exclaimed with frustration. But Dennis didn't share her anger. Instead, he was overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down his face as he reached out to hold the old man's hand. Dennis explained that the story deeply touched him, revealing that his own father had passed away recently. He and Shan had done their best to care for him, but eventually they had to move him to a nursing home due to the overwhelming responsibilities. With a significant inheritance just sitting in the bank, Dennis saw an opportunity to make a difference. "I believe we found its purpose," Dennis remarked. Without much explanation, he contacted the old man's son and expressed his interest in buying the home. The son eagerly agreed, but Dennis had no intentions of keeping the property for himself. Instead, he swiftly transferred the funds to the son and handed over the property deeds to the old man. "I'll rent the place to you for as long as you need. There's just one condition," Dennis explained. The old man could live out his days in his own home, but the family would visit him annually during their holiday. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement, providing solace to the old man and a sense of purpose to Dennis and Shannon.